SDL Tridion Insights integrates natively with SDL translation technologies. And here's how you can send out content for translation from Tridion Insights and review the translation when the content is translated by a professional translator. Here we are in Tridion Insights Experience Manager, where we can browse our staging website and make changes to the content inline. I'll just make a quick change here and then send it off for translation. We can choose to send the whole page for translation or just an individual piece of content. Here I will send this individual component for translation. We can choose the target languages we want to select and then which workflow we would like to trigger. So this is the translation system workflow where we can choose to have machine translation or not, and then a human translation or human review. In this case, I will choose machine translation only for a faster translation. The Translation Manager service is now sending off the content from Tridion Insights to SDL Managed Translation and TMS so that the translators can then pick up the job and start to translate. We can also add metadata to the translation jobs as an optional step. And here we have a dashboard in Tridion Insights where we can see the progress of the different translation jobs. And a translation job might contain many items, multiple pages, components from various locations from the CMS. We can also open the translation job to see the Translation Progress tab and have an overview of all the workflow steps defined in the translation system itself. We even have an expanded view where we can really see the details step by step of what's going on in the translation system. So we always know where the content is at within the translation process. Once it says 0%, it means it made it to the SDL TMS system. But we can also see our translation job within SDL Managed Translation. We can enable an approval step, which is optional, in which case we would find our projects in the projects to approve. But here we have our new translation job, which is currently being analyzed. And this dashboard gives us more information about the translation job itself, which languages it is targeting, the number of words, and already the machine translation will give us some indication of, an analysis of the content itself and see if we can leverage the translation memory, the cost savings, etc. So based on these indicators, we can do an informed decision about who should be the vendor performing the actual translation. Now this is already approved automatically, so it will actually flow back directly into Tridion Insights CMS. So I just have to wait as a business user of the CMS system until this notification comes back telling me the job is translated. And here we have a translation review step, which is optional again, but very beneficial for the Tridion Insights editors and content owners to actually review the translation after it's done. So I can start to claim this activity of review, and then I can analyze the translation by visualizing it side by side. We have the source content on the left in English and the target content, in this case in French, where we can verify the translation, and we can also make changes. So that's unique to SDL, where we can make changes to the translation, and actually any changes that we make here will flow back into SDL TMS in the translation memory itself. So we basically keep in sync the CMS and the translation system, so we will save costs down the road. We don't have to retranslate those changes that only happen in the CMS. So other systems will not have those capabilities, but SDL does. Once I'm happy with the translation, I can validate my workflow task or workflow activity. But before I do that, I could also want to preview the translation in the context of the country website. So I can switch to the same page on the French website and look at the translation result here. And therefore, once I'm happy with that translation in context, I can then finish my activity. Then you have two options there. If you're happy, you accept, or you can also reject. So you can go back and forth with the translator here, telling them what is good, what's bad, or you can make your changes yourself as a reviewer in the CMS and still send that content back to the translation memory. Essentially, I didn't have to think about where the content should flow back into the CMS. There was no copy pasting, no manual activity, no Excel files to open to look at the translation, etc. This is a fully integrated workflow from the CMS to the translation management system and back. So extremely easy for the content editors to prepare their multilingual content and publish it out to multiple markets.